there we go. We're live, or not live, but we're recording. Welcome, Marina, to this sit down today. You are my first guest on the channel, and I'm so excited to have you here. And thank you for showing up with your presence. It means a lot. So today we're going to have a sit down about yoga, creativity, modern spirituality, the inner journey, health, sensitivity, expression, all these things that this channel is about. So it feels very fitting to have you here because I feel you resemble so much of this. So I was just to get started, I wanted to know a bit how your yoga journey started and how you came across yoga the first time.
So I think essentially where I really started practicing was when I was in Australia. So I still do modeling, but actually that was like the reason why I was actually in Australia and Sydney. And then actually my friend, she was like, okay, let's sign up to a yoga studio. She wanted to go every day. And then I told her, it's like, okay, I'm going to join. I didn't really have like a proper intention. But first, actually, my main reason to go was just physical reasons and nothing more. But then over time, I could really see how, it just actually started to benefit me also in different ways. And it was really a great tool to just reconnect to my body, because also through modeling, I was kind of like disconnected, not just modeling, but overall not so connected to my body. And I really find it was such a beautiful and healing way to just connect to myself, my body. And then somehow when I left Australia, I was just following actually YouTube videos, mainly both beautiful. I don't know if you know.
Oh my God, I love them.
Because now, through COVID now, then that was really actually the benefit that you could join now every teacher on Zoom. But actually before COVID, it wasn't really like this. So it was mainly just in the places. And then I went to Istanbul, also for modeling, but there I lived next to a yoga studio, and I ended up just going there every day. And then somehow it develops that I met the teacher there. He was then my first teacher of my first training. I went to retreat in Bali. So I think like then it was kind of like all the things connected.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like my first journey, how I actually started.
That's so nice. And I feel like that's kind of how many people experience yoga. You come for the physical and then you realize, wow, it's doing other good stuff to me. And then you realize, oh, I was disconnected from my body. And it's such a powerful way to come into your body and kind of reclaim your body and like tap your intuition and what you have going on the inside, right? Because before that, you're just going around in the world and you're not coming from your body and embodied,
Yeah.
So it's very powerful. Wow, that's beautiful. And since you've done some yoga teacher trainings, right?
Yeah.
Did you do them? Where did you do them? Because now
while I did it in not the that's something that I did in Istanbul and London. So the first one in Istanbul, second one in London. And for this, before I started, I was like, okay, actually I want to do a training because I want to deepen my experience and essentially actually want to share yoga as well. And then I looked online, like on Bali and like all different beautiful places. But I was somehow like not fully sure, or it didn't really resonate it. And then I was just back in Istanbul for work, and I actually met my teacher, and actually we actually became friends as well, and we were for dinner, and I was like, okay, why am I not actually doing the training with you? Yeah. And anyone who really wants to do a training, I could recommend to just actually follow the teacher, because it doesn't really matter the place. You can be in Bali, but essentially you really inherited their lineage and their style of teaching. And I think it's really good to just know also, is it resonating with you? Yeah. So I did my first training, and it wasn't like a month's full-on immersion. It was more over actually 10 months, every second month. So I kind of like went in and out to Istanbul. Yeah. I really love Istanbul. And then the second training I did in London, because there's one teacher, he's quite strict. Okay. But I was really I mean, yeah, he's also doing it since so many years, and my first teacher as well. So they really practice with amazing people. They have a deep practice themselves. They have a very deep knowledge. And I was more looking really for this type of teacher that is also very traditional, who has an deep experience themselves. And then I started to, because my best friend, she lives in London. So basically this is why we signed up, but it was again also over a year.
Yeah.
So both trainings were for a longer period of time, which I personally, I mean, I don't know, like a 1 month immersion. But I think it's actually good because you
Yeah.
have time to implement, to deepen your own
And
practice.
integrate all the teachings.
Yeah. And also already start sharing with some friends and family. So yeah, I think really your body and overall your whole system has time to adjust.
Yeah. Yeah, looking back, because I've done only immersion once, like 1 month in India, and you need to set aside so much time afterwards to kind of integrate.
Mhm.
It's like your entire system's just a bit overwhelmed with not only all the physical practice, but also all the like philosophy and
Yeah.
asana clinics and everything on the side, right? So yeah, I definitely think that
Yeah.
that's probably more of a sustainable and mature way of doing a training if someone's listening to this and are feeling the call. I mean, a lot of studios I find in the cities have like really good like, programs that run weekends and this and that.
Yeah, and also you can use the time, sometimes once you deepen it and then some questions might come afterwards. While I also feel like, I mean, if you do start to deepen your own practice and start to do more challenging thing, also it's very like a lot on the body. But again, I mean, I have never done like a training in 1 month, so I cannot really compare it. The only thing afterwards, it was like, okay, actually, for me at least, it was good. But it's also the first step because you're really committing to something. It's not just like I'm gonna go there for a month and then it's fine. Like, no, you're actually committing for a year. So that was first what I was struggling with. I was like, how should I make it happen? But in the end, it always works out perfectly.
Right. And also, I feel like that's kind of the for me anyway, the lesson of yoga as well is that a little every day and to have your regular practice, that's kind of where it's at, right? To commit to yourself, even on those days when you're like, oh, I haven't got the motivation or I'm not feeling it today. That's maybe when you need it the most, or at least to just go and lie on your mat and like feel what's going on.
Yeah, and I think also the practice changes because that's at least now practicing yoga, I think for over 6 years, it really changes. And I think really in the period of life where you are or how you feel, you also need different things.
Yes.
You might need different teachers as well. I think even one person that can be your teacher for a period of time, even this, not always, but this can change as well. For example, my second teacher that, I mean, I really still love his classes, but it's very like military. It's very strict. It's very hard on the body. It's like,
Ashtanga or
yeah, Ashtanga Vinyasa. So it's not like a pure Ashtanga, but it's also very hard on the body. I was actually just recently, last September. I mean, that's already now 5 months ago. But I was in London, and then after a year, I practiced with him again, and I was like, wow, I don't know how I did this. I sometimes went to his classes for like 4 times a week. And his class is always 90 minutes, and it is at least for me what I feel right now. What I need still a deep practice, but more. I don't know about which say more soft, but a bit more slow, because I think the more actually I really want to stay connected with my breath, I want to really feel what's happening. Even though I still say, I mean, I know there are a lot of also so many yoga styles and also very like modern yoga styles. I still resonate. I always say I'm team tradition.
Yeah.
I just like the pure thing, how it was taught, and really following that way. Because in the end, each time often that what I experience is once I do this practice, quite traditional based, I really feel it takes me much deeper. Right. Because also, I mean, there's a reason why it was taught this way.
Exactly.
Not to say that, like all the modern styles are not valid, but I think it's just something that I personally resonate. So I think even in this yoga range, people need to find their own place and their style. And even this again can kind of like change throughout your own evolution.
Definitely. And I think that that's the cool thing about these more traditional lineages and ways of yoga is that, like, if you do a proper Ashtanga series afterwards, you really notice, like, wow, that's shifted me so deeply, rather than if you just did like a 30-minute flow off YouTube. Like, there is a quality difference, and you understand, as you said, that like there's a reason why we're doing it in this order. There's a reason why this is the breath count, and there's a there's really a deep science behind traditional ways, right? So yeah, that's super. And what styles do you find yourself teaching, or how do you navigate a teaching role?
Well, so I think both training, I mean, at the end, everything comes from the same source. But I do mainly teach. I find even with this, I remember also my first teacher always said it was kind of like also Ashtanga Vinyasa or Vinyasa based.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really, I would say I'm more Vinyasa.
Yeah.
Usually 5 breath counts, sometimes depending on when I have, for example, being deeper in a pose.
Yeah.
And quite traditional. I'm actually just really, I feel like also sometimes, because I think this is also the thing also once you started teaching, and also your teaching might change as well.
Yeah.
But I know there are like now so many yoga teachers out there and so many different classes, and everyone tries to come up with something new. But at the end of the day, I realized for myself, just keep it the way it is. And actually also my first teacher always said he's not impressed by the sequence. He's impressed by the teaching that he put in. Because with the sequence, you just have a limited amount. I mean, you can get creative, but in the end, that's not really what takes you deep. No. Rather than really like the teaching or whatever. So you could share something that really resonates and comes from you, and you just pour it into the sequence. And then it doesn't really matter. I think whatever you might, I think at least that would be maybe an advice for anyone who starts teaching. Just teach what feels true for you.
Yeah.
And not to think like, oh, what do people expect of me? Mm-hmm. Because when I finished my first teacher training, that was right before COVID actually. And then I started to teach every Sunday for like 6 months. It was kind of like an internship in the one studio where in Istanbul, actually in German, because there are a lot of German speaking people in Istanbul, a lot of Turkish people that actually do speak German. But I knew that for a long, I don't know how long, maybe 2 months, I had to teach the same sequence every Sunday. And I was like, why do I need to do this? And then at one point I came to my teacher, I texted him, I was like, don't you think like people think it's normal? And he said, trust me, there's a reason why I told you to just teach that way, because I knew you're going to ask me, I think it's boring, I need to change it. And then he really again reminded me of what he said, as he said you can, even with the same sequence, you can change things up, maybe holding a longer plank or just really sharing, and like in different poses, just sharing like a teaching. Yeah.
That's so cool. And I think that the thing is that even though the sequence is the same every time, the experience for the student will differ every time anyway, because it's so connected to your daily form, and we change every day. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, as you say, how we're sequencing a class, or it's more about the energy and the intention and the theme and these kind of things.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and usually people don't really remember, I think. No. I think because you're so caught up in your own world and your own whatever's going on for you in that practice or overall in the day. But obviously, once you take the role as a teacher and you stand in front, that's also, again, another layer that kind of, maybe challenge some insecurities. So you kind of want to make it exciting so people actually like it. Yeah.
Well, that's so cool to hear about, because it really is a journey in itself to be in the teaching role, right? Because for me personally, I did both my yoga teacher trainings more for my own personal like development and to go deeper and learn more, and I was just always gravitating towards yoga so much, and I never really saw myself even teaching necessarily, because I was like, this is my private sacred thing that it feels vulnerable to share it, so yeah, it's definitely a big journey, I feel, to put yourself in front of people and
Yeah.
control and manage a room and have responsibility. There's people who have injuries, or they have like certain conditions, and you need to make sure that their bodies are supported, and so it's definitely a
Yeah,
learning
I
process.
think it's it's a good practice as well to kind of to use it. And I think also, I mean, still, I think each time you're going to stand in front and it's kind of also confronting something, but then actually you just start teaching and then it becomes kind of like your second nature. Um, Also, I think that's an interesting point sometimes with injuries. I mean, I know there are like different views on it, but overall, that's something also what it's kind of like your own responsibility. For example, if I know someone comes up to me, I would never also like give adjustments or actually do something. But I think overall, it's really also to encourage that people know their body best. And there are
Yes.
certain things that you shouldn't do. And overall, I think you can always like generalize teaching and that people are aware actually that the knees are safe and like the main things for everyone. But I think also sometimes with an injury, it's yeah, I mean, I'm still like I usually don't ask anymore because I know actually some teachers they were kind of like, okay, why asking? Even like, are you okay with me touching? Are there any injuries? He said you put the baseline of actually some like fears and
Yeah.
like doubts maybe in the
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
But I think this is also like a truth that everyone kind of needs to find out for themselves. And I think like with everything, right? There's so many different opinions of
Yeah.
what to do or not. I find that also interesting, even when I think that's an overall, yeah, like that's a safe space to share. And that was like a woman that said in a talk, and I find that thought quite interesting. She said, "It's not my responsibility if you feel safe. I can do something to not right provide the space, but we
Yeah.
have our own, and safety looks so different for each person. So
Yeah.
what safety means for me doesn't mean that it's the same for you.
Right.
So overall, that it's actually right creating obviously a space where you feel like okay, no one's harmed overall. Um, but just then really, yeah, that sometimes people just come into their own trust and their own safety within.
Definitely. And I guess that that's also a process that if you return to yoga continuously, to really tune into your body's messages, because it's always letting you know if this is within its boundaries or not. But if you don't develop that kind of muscle with yourself, and if you haven't gone to many classes, then you won't understand that. So I think it's so true, as you say, that people have to discover their own sense of safety and their own cues from their body. So it's not something that you source from others or seek outside of yourself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even if you still say, okay, stay with yourself, don't look to your neighbor, people will still naturally do it. So I think it's but yeah, I think it's also especially in the beginning when you don't really know what to do, you might look around to see what other people are doing. Um But yeah, overall, I think once you start to deepen your practice, and maybe at first people don't really know because they still maybe start and they feel quite disconnected from their body.
Yeah.
But I think with this is also overall you can like give different stages. And if I see it's also a little bit about reading the room.
Yeah.
Because if, for example, I see, okay, there are some people you can have a sequence or things in mind what you want to share. But if you feel like the most amount of people that cannot even do like a chaturanga,
Yeah.
then it's like I think it's always adjusting. And sometimes, for example, if I know okay, people who are here today, they actually do have a good practice, then I might throw in like deeper things, or more difficult things.
Yeah.
So
More
yeah,
advanced.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important thing, and it keeps you more present as well. I guess as a teacher, you're not doing it on autopilot. You're like feeling into what kind of people have shown up today,
yeah,
and what they need, and how you can support them best and stuff. But one thing that I wanted to talk about to you about is I've seen that you practice a lot of Kundalini yoga. yoga.
Yeah.
And I haven't really got into it myself, but I'm so intrigued. And the few times where I do it, I'm like, wow, it's amazing. It's like a drug.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear a bit more about your process and how you got into it and what your practice is today when it comes to Kundalini yoga.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big Kundalini yoga fan, even though I do teach Vinyasa and it's also my practice. My daily practice is Kundalini as well.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know Kundalini yoga, basically Kundalini yoga, it's quite different from like the Vinyasa, or like maybe if we think about yoga, like the sequence. Because also it actually comes more from it comes from the tantric tradition, so it's a different lineage. And it's also kind of called the mother yoga, and more like the yoga of awareness. So you might have a different sequence of breath, of mantras, of mudras, just different things put into specific sequence, and they call it actually a kriya. So a kriya basically means a complete action, and this then sometimes like a kriya put together in a specific sequence to lead to a specific manifestation. And I do. So the first time when I think like now 6 or 7 years ago, when I went to Bali, I went to like a yoga retreat. And that was the first time where I got introduced to Kundalini yoga. And yeah, every morning at 6 a.m. we did like this 2.5 hours practice. And I didn't knew that either before. But I really felt like it shifted so much within me. And actually, the first teacher, he gave me a kriya. So, I mean, there are thousands of kriyas that you could do, but usually also you've been given whatever you might need. Usually, if you have a teacher, he will give you one. And this is actually the one that you should practice every day. And this one, and then I did practice for over half a year every day. Then I needed to stop because I had COVID actually quite strong, so I couldn't breathe. So I needed to stop. But and then overall, I just never really stopped practicing Kundalini. Sometimes it was less, sometimes it was more. But overall, I really feel it's more like such a subtle practice, and it really works on your whole aura, on your energetic field. So you actually want to strengthen your energetic field. And it's actually really, I mean, it's the best thing to strengthen your nervous system. Yeah. Because in order, whatever you want to have in life or to deal with challenges, you need a strong nervous system. And that's really where Kundalini yoga works a lot. And yeah, I mean, I did so many also for prosperity. I still do this one. And I also shared like a Trice now, like prosperity course. Yeah. So it's with a kriya that's for prosperity, and it really works like each time. Like I love when people start practicing it. So it's called Sobha Kriya. So Sobagh kriya. So in case anyone wants to look it up, it's also quite a fun practice to do. Yeah. And yeah, so I still have like recently actually I reconnected with my first teacher that I met on Bali. And I think with him, I want to do also soon, he's going to do like 11 weeks training. So I did taught some Kundalini classes as well, because I do have a daily practice since many years and I practice with different teachers. And it's interesting because people always ask me about it. They're like, can we do a Kundalini class? I'm like, oh, I'm officially on paper. I'm not like a Kundalini teacher, but I know actually I do have enough knowledge. And then actually recently I just started teaching some online classes, and that was actually really beautiful because I just love to share it as well. And I just know it's such a potent practice. Whenever I feel I don't feel so good or like mentally, I really feel then when I deepen my Kundalini practice, that really helps you to get out of it. While I find sometimes then actually coming, if the mind is already very full and you go onto your mat and try to do your vinyasa, it's harder to shift. But I think like for me, the combination is perfect because I still need this. It can be very exhausting, Kundalini. So it depends. It can also, it's a different kind of exhaustion, and you do also in purpose a lot of unusual movements to kind of like break the patterns of your subconscious. And yeah, but for me the mix, it's great.
Yeah. So how if you have like your morning ritual or your morning practice today. I guess some mornings you go up and you teach, but do you have some kind of non-negotiable little ritual or practice, or do you kind of
Yeah.
differ day by day?
I mean, I really love my mornings and I
Yeah.
like to wake up earlier so I can really use it. Something that I noticed for myself, I'm not that type of person waking up 8 a.m., going on my mat practice. I
Mm.
really feel like I need this like slow time and then I wake up, I do a meditation. Um, for now, I do actually almost every morning, I do the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation,
Yes, I love
morning one. And then I write, I read usually, and I just like to go in the morning. I'm more creative. I think my most creative time is usually in the morning, so I really like to use that. And I just really like to have it like slow, and I have my good like one ritual is actually also coffee.
Yeah.
I just really, for me, I don't really need it to wake up, but I just love this like feeling,
Yes. The
making a
hot
coffee, maybe going back to bed and then just reading a little bit. So just really start waking up
yeah.
and then just follow a little bit. So meditation always.
Mm.
And then usually in the past, I did my Kundalini practice in the morning.
Mm.
Now, usually I have it in the evening more, because I don't, I first actually need silence and meditation that I really feel, okay, I can align my mind and my
Yeah.
subconscious. Um, and I also do a lot of work from to be magnetic, since many years. It's sometimes more and more and sometimes less. So, yeah, it's basically, it's actually they talk about manifestation but that we do manifest from our subconscious. So they have a lot of meditation, or they call them deep imagining, almost like hypnosis,
Yeah.
where you really go into for, I mean, they have meditations for different, for self-love, for arm blocking. So
Yeah.
you actually really go into your subconscious and see what is the root cause of it, and then you kind of shift it.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I think this is like,
It's Lucy Phillips.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, yeah, so many years I do that. And I just recently actually had a manifestation coming through, that I have on my list for a long time. But it's
Yeah.
not like I had this, like, this needs to happen. And then out of nowhere, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this actually just happened. Um, so yeah.
No, it's so powerful to connect with your subconscious, right? And plant the seeds and reprogram. I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about that as well. Like it's a quantum field, right? And we create our own reality. So it's like to consciously actually do that as well by daring to go deep within and restructure and change your perspectives and shift things and open up your, as you say, like the Kundalini yoga, to open up your nervous system mainly to be able to handle like a manifestation coming through, or
Yeah.
strengthening your auric field so that you have good boundaries and these kind of things. So it's
Yeah, I find also, once you, because obviously we all want to connect or we want to invite certain things, and we all know we have some triggers, we have some blockages or just patterns in our own life. And sometimes I think it can be hard to actually be like, okay, I know I want this, but how do I actually get there? And I know I'm like constantly being in the same loop or having like similar triggers.
yeah.
And I think it's overall it's not so easy, but actually then really having a work, for example, like to be magnetic, it's very, you can really, I feel it's very self-empowering, because
Yeah.
I know, okay, there's actually a tool that I can use.
Yeah.
Like the trigger itself or like the blockage is not bad,
No.
but I know actually, because sometimes it can be so big and we're like, oh, I want to change that, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And I think like with this, I can really, you have kind of like a toolbox. You know, okay, there's a trigger, you write it down, and then you might do an unblock DI, or you do kind of put yourself. So I really, yeah, it feels quite good because you actually know, okay, it doesn't matter what arises.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a tool where I know I can navigate my way through. But if you
Yeah.
don't have it, then it's a little bit like, I think we all kind of want to change,
Yeah.
but sometimes the question is how and what. And I think also, I mean, we live in an age, there's so much information. There are so many different impulses and manifestation techniques or whatever. And that's one thing that I often also share in my class is that, I mean, I live in Berlin. And we're quite fortunate with you can do all kind of breath work, all kind of yoga, all the things you want to do. And I think that's great. But one thing also to be aware of is that sometimes you might just then jump from one modality to the other. So we try to do all of it, but we're not sticking to one thing and we're not going deeper into something. And I think if you want to go deeper into something, just commit, go simple, know what you could do, and just do it every day. And also stay with the things when it starts to be uncomfortable. The moments where you feel this is boring. I mean, I have moments in my teacher training. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I like yoga. I was really questioning myself. I was like, I don't know if I like yoga. And then, you have these like moments, and I think I still sometimes have it. I think like last Saturday, I was like, why am I here? Like, I knew it's actually good and I really wanted to go to yoga, but like my mind was like, I don't want to be here. Let's do something else. And I think these are really the moments where you then usually start to jump, or we are like, it's okay. Today you can rest. You can do all of it. And yes, sometimes we need to have rest, but oftentimes also just our mind finding some comfort zones.
Yes, kind of the monkey brain that's trying to.
Yeah.
Well, I recently studied a course in Kabbalah, and they call it the opponent, like the voice that's kind of trying to block you from being in your light or doing what's best for you.
Did you do the Kabbalah 1 of David Guillaume?
Yes. Have you
Great,
done it?
good. Actually, I'm doing it at the moment. So funny that you actually say that, because I found him, I think, like in around autumn. I was, actually, I which podcast with Melissa Woodhouse? She did this training, so she interviewed him, and then I really went into a spiral. I started to listen to every podcast. I started to do the Kabbalah, and I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. Like everything. And again, it's also kind of like a tool, what he always says, it does give you guidance. Doesn't matter for which moment, there is a way, there is kind of like almost like books, like this
like
how you can work through it.
Like handbook.
Yeah.
No, for me, I want to do the Kabbalah 2, but I'm still like letting Kabbalah 1 sink in.
Yeah.
But there are so many concepts, and I think about it like every day, the things, and I'm like, these teachings just make, they explain how everything works, and so divine.
Yeah, I find even this is something even before we talked, right? It was like kind of also trying to use it. And then also one thing what he always asked, to just ask, okay, how can I come from a giving place? How can I come from a giving place? And I find also sometimes what I notice myself or try to observe even by practicing, when he shared actually anytime we do feel insecure or embarrassed, or we're like, because we're so much concerned about how do people perceive us. And then I think it's very natural, like everyone has it. But I find really this moment that actually helped me, this course, to kind of being like, okay, where am I just right now, just staying with myself? Where am I actually not just, like giving, basically? Yeah.
No, I love that. And I also love when he says, like, the only free will we have is whether we're reactive or not. And I'm like, it's also that kind of, it gives your power back, but it also makes you having to be 100% accountable for your own energy and your own response to life, So it's for me, that course was quite life-changing, actually, even though it's only, what is it, like 10 lessons or something, but I really felt like every word he said, I was like, wow.
Yeah, I did so many notes as well.
Yeah.
And I like that it's actually so accessible. I think what you could just donate $1 if you just have $1, as much as you want to.
Yeah.
And but I feel also, because once I heard him on this podcast, I feel he's now like everywhere. And I find this is always beautiful to witness. I think it's even with yoga or Kabbalah, these are like also ancient teachings that actually they come up back to the forefront. And people know, at least, I mean, even my grandma, she's 90. Yeah. She knows because my mom, she did a yin yoga training. And she recently, she said, yeah, and she now, I mean, kind of knows, right, what yoga is. But usually it's not something that she practices. It's not like a German practice. So I think like it really like in so many different places. And yes, it's kind of like also commercialized as well. But overall, it's really helping people. Yeah.
It's really beautiful, I guess, internet and technology that it can spread so fast and people can connect so much. I mean, just that you can listen to Be Magnetics or like meditations or a podcast episode and be introduced to like a Kabbalah teacher, and it really makes like your own journey of growing and evolving so much more accessible, and like there's no excuses not to, really.
Yeah.
So everything is so available to us, which I guess is good and bad, but it's a nice good time to be alive, I guess. Well, I was also curious to hear more about, because you do a lot of writing and poetry and stuff.
Yeah.
Creative. And I was curious to hear like what your process with discovering writing as an outlet or a medium of expression for yourself, and what you do to kind of embrace your creative side more.
So I was actually always writing as a child already. And then obviously you go through your school process and people tell you this is like not good or whatever. So I think these are definitely some blockages that I still have inside of myself.
Yeah.
But then overall, I mean, over the years, that was not really my focus. But what I always did was kind of like writing things in the notes of my phone whenever I had some like words or whatever coming up, and then also journaling, writing things down. And then I did for a while this from the book The Artist's Way, the morning pages. That was at one point kind of like my daily ritual in the morning first. Now not so much anymore. But yeah, I still do journaling whenever I really feel it just helps me to write things down. And also just really put things into a perspective, because sometimes we're so in thought loops, and you're so deeply entangled in it, so you don't really see, okay, what's happening. But once you write it down, it actually does create this distance, and you can see and look at it from a more distant place. And I find sometimes then I realize I'm like, okay, this is complete nonsense. Like this doesn't matter.
Yeah, you get a bit of separation, and you're like, oh my God.
And then, over the years, I mean, I always wrote in the notes on my phone kind of like poetry. And I mean, I love to read, and I love to read poetry as well. And then just for myself. But then sometimes I started to share it. And actually, there was once also my first yoga teacher, because he was writing as well. He still, I think, to this day, he still every morning since so many years. He does these like morning pages.
Yeah.
And he always used to send me, he said, just keep writing. He always used to send me 5 random words. And I would just like, like write like a poem or whatever comes with that. Yeah. And I find this is like overall still like something that really helps me, or even like with a friend, right? To just get things out. Or even also you could do it by yourself, just pick 5 random words and then just allow yourself to use them in a word in while writing. And then I think now this made already 2 years ago, but I was joining a program, and she does share a lot on Substack, her writing since many years. And I saw that and really like inspired me. And then at one point I was like, okay, I'm just gonna share it as well. So that was quite a step.
Yeah.
Actually, no, before that I did share on my website more like things that like also some rituals about yoga. But poetry was more like less than 2 years ago that I shared it. And that was just because I feel like even poetry does feel kind of more vulnerable to share, because they your own like deeper insights and emotions that you kind of use to just write things down. But it was good to overcome it. And I find now I'm just whatever, if I'm having it, I'm just sending it. I'm not even thinking, okay, who's going to respond or somebody telling me something, but I just really feel when the time is right, I just share it. And it's actually, this is beautiful to see. Like once it was just for myself, I think like a process to just share it, but I didn't have an expectation from anyone to send a message to it. But then sometimes getting like some messages that really touch people, or they really read it and it resonated. It was like, okay, wow, this is like really a gift as well. So yeah.
Well, that's so beautiful, because that's something that I find is such a now I'm creating this YouTube channel, and also I guess maybe speaking is more my medium right now of expression. But that big when it feels such a big step to actually put yourself out there, because suddenly you're subject to like people seeing you, and you're sharing stuff from your heart, and it's vulnerable, and it's might feel almost private, and it really but then you kind of overcome, or I found that you kind of overcome the step where you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna do this, and be myself, and whoever resonates, whoever doesn't, like whatever, but it's definitely a process of coming out of your
Yeah, totally. And that's okay. I think it's also a little bit because it's out of the comfort zone. It's like a new thing that we haven't done before. But I think overall, I think most of the time people don't really think about it that much, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's like because we think like, oh my God, what you think like, but everyone is so with themselves
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are people who won't resonate and whatever, but it doesn't matter actually.
No.
The people who are meant to resonate with that, they will. And at the end of the day, I really feel it's like also just like sharing and giving.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes without us even knowing, by actually taking that step, we do inspire other people to do the same. And yeah, so yeah, the more we actually do that and allow ourselves to be ourselves and express that, then we will naturally influence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the authenticity, the energy of authenticity and being vulnerable it definitely shows your true colors, and it can show the right people like who you are. I found that I read this autumn. I read The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. That book was so empowering for me to like when it comes to like creativity and art and creativity as a way of being, and to like allow yourself that nothing has to be perfect, or just put it out there and get over it and keep on doing it. And that I really that was another like book where every word I was like, wow, this is every chapter of everything about it. I was like, wow, this is so truthful, and it really it's funny how you always find the right book at the right time, and the right teacher at the right time, right? I really just needed to hear it. Was like he was speaking directly to me, so I was like, wow, Rick Rubin.
Yeah, I'm also a big Rick Rubin fan.
Right? Yeah, I think if anyone's listening to this, that if you want to hear somebody brilliant speak on creativity and birthing new things, he has so many good. I've seen like interviews with him on YouTube, and
yeah,
he went on or in his own podcast, I guess, as well. Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah, and he also always says that the audience comes last, and I find that's something doesn't matter what you create.
Yeah.
I think this is something really good to remember, and also that it should just even while the creation. I think once also you said in a podcast that at the end just think about everything as a diary entry, and how could you judge a diary entry? Like there's no like this is right, this is wrong, this is not good. So I think this is very like helpful. He is very special. He and also he himself, he has like a lot of meditation practices, so you could feel that you can sense his own process. And just being connected to himself, that he really says he knows what he likes, and he knows what he doesn't like. And I think that's his gift in many ways.
Yeah, I didn't know that he also had meditations and stuff. I mean,
he doesn't share meditations, but he does always, I think, mainly like transcendental meditation. So he has his own practice.
Yeah, he feels very living very consciously.
Yeah.
And I was also curious, it's kind of related to this in general, like what has your because you share like your life a bit on Instagram, and you share your writing on Substack, and what has been your process of like being courageous and allowing yourself to find your like voice online and self-expression, and what has been your relationship to these kind of concepts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still trying to find it. I'm like, I don't know. It's not, for example, like even with my Instagram, it's not like I'm having something, okay, this needs to go somewhere. So sometimes I might post, sometimes I don't. But something, obviously for me, having a platform like Instagram was first because also I do modeling, and
Yeah.
that's something still essentially we have it.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember there was even, yeah, you should build your Instagram followers and invest in it. But I was like, I could, at least for myself, I could never really resonate with going somewhere, making a picture of myself, having a coffee. Like if I'm like walking around the street, I just want to have a hoodie on. I'm like really don't want to see what I'm wearing and that I'm like constantly making pictures of myself. This actually more stressed me out. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then yeah, just I think overall, once I actually allowed myself also trying to experiment with different things, starting with yoga, and then also I always love to share. And then I remember I was 3 or 4 years ago on Ibiza, and I just did some like a recording where I just shared some thoughts. And then within COVID times, I started these like live conversations as well, and then more of my writing. So I really allowed myself more to share what feels generally good for me. And then that's much easier for me to share and to create. But if
Yeah.
I'm thinking now again about myself, I still have this sometimes when I'm like, oh, I should post something again, but what should I post of me? I'm like, I don't do much selfies and
Yeah.
I just also probably won't start. I don't know. And if you're in Berlin winter, there's not much inspiration at least. Um, but yeah, I think just sharing what I love, what interests me, and the beautiful thing to see that even while connected to my work with modeling, through that, me just sharing what I like, I actually did attracted some clients and some jobs that were actually because it resonated with them.
Yeah.
This is why, for example, they booked me. And
Yeah.
I think that was quite beautiful because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter the amount of followers that you have, but it's really like the people that resonate. So sometimes you get these random messages, or even also that you reached out. It's like, oh, this is actually so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just trusting in that. I think really finding, for example, if it's your thing to make Instagram look perfectly, you love aesthetics, you love colors, and then do that. But I
Yeah.
find if people want to try to build something and then really seeing what is right now, what do people want, the color, I think it's just, if that's not your thing, just follow your own way of expression and just trust that you will naturally attract the right people who do resonate with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe now more than ever, what people are looking for is more genuine expression from people, not necessarily the staged material or the, as you said,
Mm.
I feel the same. Like it doesn't come natural for me to like pose in front of a building when I'm in a city or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. To just let it flow more organically and more, I guess, with maybe more depth. And you said you were sharing
Mm.
those talks and just expressing yourself more raw. That's what I find on social media, because I'm not that interested in social media unless it's like connecting and seeing people that
Yeah.
I feel I resonate with and that maybe are living life in a similar way to myself, or like you can learn or be inspired by someone else rather than something looking perfect, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like this is still like a really great platform. I mean, I
Mm.
find so many inspiring people through that, or you see something you can learn. And obviously, certain extent sometimes can be also full on distraction.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, I met a lot of also one of where I'm always doing the Kundalini programs. I met her as well through Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And then I'm just checking the time here. So it's so nice when you just speak in time and
Uh-huh.
space. That's also the cool thing about technology, I find, in this day and age, that we can like FaceTime anyone,
Yeah.
anywhere, at any time. But I was also curious to hear more about, because, like, I guess when you're in these fields of yoga and taking care of your energy and all this stuff, what your relationship is to, from what I gather, you also feel like a sensitive person, and what your relationship is with like being a sensitive person in a world that maybe isn't constructed for necessarily being sensitive towards a lot of impressions or people or vibes or whatever it might be. Do you have any thoughts that you would like to share on sensitivity?
Yeah, I do. I think overall I would say I'm sensitive and I do feel a lot. Um, but also I don't know if it's helpful to constantly actually tell yourself, I'm so sensitive, I cannot handle this. Because this is like the main thing. It's like, no, you just live in a world, you can make it happen somehow. But I think sometimes it's also then another limitation that we put on ourselves. I'm sensitive, and this is why I cannot work or function in normal society.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, like maybe also, uh, I think it's very important to just have a practice overall for everyone that really connects you to yourself. And then, yeah, being more sensitive when you know I'm actually more sensitive, maybe on like a certain day that you're not going to certain places where you know it might be too much, or that you really are surrounding yourself with the right people where you feel generally good with. Being mindful also what you're watching, what you're doing. Still, yeah, you could even do like a cleansing meditation. Sometimes I do that, or even like, while being in a shower, just imagining to cleanse. Yeah, I think this is the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I love
still find it
and
hard
yeah,
because it's a little bit like, yeah, even I think a lot of people maybe we're sensitive, maybe we're just more cut off.
yeah,
And then I think just really taking the responsibility and knowing, okay, because I know I'm sensitive, how can I arrange my life and the things that I'm doing that it's supported
yeah,
for it?
yeah,
Um, this is the main thing. But I think really being mindful of like not using it as a limitation.
yeah.
Because I'm sensitive, this is why I cannot do certain things.
Mm.
But actually really like, yeah, I'm sensitive and I know it's actually a gift. But I think we might also can learn to navigate when to open ourselves up and more tune into something, or where actually also learn to have these energetic boundaries, knowing like I'm going somewhere and like intentionally I'm matching like even like a gold white
Yeah,
light surrounding me, that I know I go there, but I don't try to fully open myself up and really
yeah,
sensing and tuning into it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more of the approach can be more like honoring how you're wired and honoring, as you say, it as a gift and that you are more tapped in many ways. And it's rather maybe more of the natural way of being. I mean, or I feel like when I'm in nature, then I just feel how I feel so connected to nature. And
Mm,
it's just that your antennas are more awake. And that's a beautiful thing, right? So
yeah.
but it's a process of finding your relationship to
Yeah,
that.
I think sometimes it works and sometimes you do too much and you will have these situations where you feel overwhelmed. I have this, maybe I'm good in like just doing. I know also for myself, I'm good in doing and just kind of like trying to shut it off. But then I sometimes have these moments like, damn, like I did too much again. So then
Yeah,
I have this like, depending also where you're on your cycle, this is something that I'm really trying to learn or integrate a little bit more, to really then being mindful and giving myself the moment of rest, and then maybe not being with so many people,
yeah,
because just because I usually have the capacity of it and I knew how to handle it doesn't mean I always need to do it, because otherwise I think this can also burn you out.
definitely. And I feel like that to just realize that doing your best looks different every day. Like you
Yeah.
can always do your best, but some days, yeah, if your cycle is more like, oh, I'm in more of an internal mode today, or I need to rest more today, or actually this to-do list is I don't need to do all of this stuff today, so let's be kind to myself and my body and listen and maybe
Yeah.
move a few things to tomorrow or whatever it might be. I don't know if you know, do you know Emmy Ray, who has the Daily Rest?
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw she wrote somewhere recently, and it really, I kind of embodied it as a mantra. She was like, do hard things gently. And I was like, wow, I really feel that. Like, how can I, even though I have stuff to do and like we can't just totally zoom out sometimes, but like, how can I do it with more gentleness towards
Yeah.
myself? It's a good, good teaching. But okay, to wrap this up a bit, I was curious to hear like, what is your, like, how do you fill yourself up? What's your best ways to fill your own cup? Because I can feel sometimes when you teach a lot of yoga and you give a lot of yourself, and sometimes like after a yoga class, even though my soul is like very nourished, I can still feel like energetically a bit
Yeah.
like, wow, I've given so much of myself, and how can I now get my energy back so that I can lead and show up for others again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did minimize my classes a little bit, because I was like, it's just too much, and I don't want that teaching yoga becomes another thing on the to-do list. And I think living in a big city, depending where you teach, and sometimes also the reality of a yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, that you just do have a lot of classes. But I think this is really mindful of being like, okay, don't sacrifice your own practice. I think this is the main important thing, your own practice. And yeah, moments of filling myself up, I think is really like my daily, right? As I talked about, like the morning routine, my meditations, my own practice, Kundalini, then actually being with my friends or family, um, having deep conversations, reading, and just really following the things that lift me up. And I think it's quite simple usually. But really, yeah, just filling each day with small, beautiful, full things.
Yeah.
And yeah, how I recharge is really mainly my own practice of yoga, of meditation, of reading, of writing. And yeah, I mean, each person has different things that really lights them up or inspires them. So I think it's really good knowing that and actually making these things a priority daily, even if it's just 5 minutes or 10. But I think oftentimes once also we start to be more busy, these are usually the things that we neglect or we say like, okay, I don't have time for this. But it's rather really shifting they are actually the foundation of anything that you do. And that will make everything different, like the interactions with your friends, or family, your work, um, and really being, yeah, also mindful who's around you. Um, Sometimes letting go of people, of places, letting go of your own patterns, whatever. I'll try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just overall, I really like more like peace.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like a very also relaxed if I have good food. I'm a Taurus, so I just like
Oh,
comfort and good, pleasurable, beautiful things. I
yeah.
do want to integrate more nature,
Yeah.
something I don't do so much in Berlin, but I do fly to Cape Town soon.
Oh,
First
amazing.
time. So I'm excited
Oh,
for that because I really feel this is like the main thing and I'm great to actually, I'm excited to go into nature and hopefully also find new inspiration. Um, because as we change, also the things that we might want to share are changing as well.
yeah.
And I feel like I'm still in this transitioning process. I don't know for what yet, but I know something new. I will still teach and do something, but I really feel, and this is also a process. We are something like it's within me that wants to come forth. I don't know what it is yet, but yet I can feel it. And right
Yeah.
now, I feel like right now, okay, just also letting this be, just a process
Yeah.
and just releasing and also letting go for all the things that where I know it's not serving me and I don't want to carry that further. Yeah,
That's so nice. So something wants to be birthed through you, basically.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And then you need to create like space and maybe time as well to just see what that is, what's calling you.
yeah, definitely.
But amazing. I haven't been to Cape Town either, but it's been on my list for such a long time. I just like
Yeah,
seeing myself hiking up the Table Mountain and all the beaches, and I have a good friend who lives there, and she's like, "I'll show you around," and it's
yeah,
convenient, right? Because it's the same time zone as Europe, and it just seems like a really nice place where you can kind of combine like the natural life and the city
Yeah.
life. And it seems to be a lot of nice like yoga studios and cute
Yeah,
cafes.
exactly. Are usually all the things that I like. And I do have a lot of friends there as well at the moment. And this is why since years I'm saying, I'm coming, I'm coming. But now I booked the flight on Saturday.
Oh wow! Going.
I mean, not Saturday, but like past Saturday, I booked it. But I'm going to on the 11th and I will stay a month.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's so soon.
Yeah, it's soon. But it's good. I mean, I really, yeah, it's good to have a little break.
Yeah.
I will also teach there most likely. Um, yeah.
That's so exciting. I was going to ask you, like, if you had anything happening in the coming time or anything that you were dreaming of 2025, and I
Yeah,
guess
I mean, mainly really excited once he didn't launch it yet, but he said he will launch it soon, the Kundalini training, which is going to be 11 weeks.
well,
And yeah, I'm just really excited now to for me it's not just sun. I find it's mainly like really being in nature, finding new places. I really love different cultures and exploring like new things. This is
yeah,
something actually that really fills me up. Not to go to astrology, but for example, I mean, for anyone who knows, my for example moon is in Sagittarius, and I do have a lot of placements in the ninth house, which
yeah,
is all about travel, higher philosophy, and I really feel like, oh, and now when I booked this the flight, I was like, okay, this is exactly also I feel this is what I need, and I can actually, yeah, I will have probably more new inspiration.
yeah,
Um, and then yeah, a lot of yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows what's happening this year?
yeah.
But overall, yeah, I think there's some beautiful things are coming, and yeah.
Sounds amazing. I love when you start to like look into your astrology for both. I've recently discovered also astrocartography, you know,
Mhm.
of like different lines and
Yeah,
to like travel with intention and purpose. I'm like, okay, I'm going there. I want to have this kind of trip, and you know,
yeah.
it's
I did check Cape Town, not before, actually afterwards, and it's quite. I don't know, it's like sunline squaring Neptune. So it actually says quite good for spirituality and intuition, but also then sunline your own expression. So that can be like it's good for creativity and all of it. And I was like, okay, this sounds good. Being
awesome.
aware not to be too dreamy or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
let's
so
see.
nice. This time of year, I feel like we all need some vitamin D as well, so it's
Yeah.
perfect to go south. Well, it's been so beautiful to talk to you, Marina. It's a
Okay.
pleasure to have you on as the first guest on the channel, and I look forward to maybe having you on again in the future. I feel like there's so many things that we can talk about, and
Yeah, thank
I'm
you
very
so much.
grateful that you took the time out of your schedule. It's a new moon today, I guess. Maybe you
Yeah,
teach.
new moon and Chinese New Year. I don't know much
Oh,
about it, but it's the year of the snake.
oh,
I
really?
read this today, so
Oh.
I'm not the right person to talk about it in detail, but
Exciting. Well, it's always nice with a new beginning. Like I think
yeah,
a new
good
energy.
alignment for this talk.
Right? That's what I'm thinking. I was like, it's cool that I'm setting a new direction for the channel and the
Yeah.
new. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
showing up.
you.
It means so much to me, and it was so beautiful to talk to you. And I wish
Likewise.
you a beautiful day and safe travels to Cape Town.
Thank you.
Enjoy your trip.
Bye.
Bye.